Welcome back, YouTube. Sensei Domino here. Today I'm going to be showing the 1983 Topps baseball set. It's a 792 card set, and it's notable for having 3 Hall of Fame rookie cards in it. As usual, I'll show the fronts and the backs of the first few cards, then I'll just show the front so the video isn't too terribly long. Start with card number 1, Tony Armas. Great Rickey Henderson. Greg Minton. Lance Parrish. Manny Trio. John Wathan. Gene Richards. Go ahead and show the back of the base. Steve Balboni. Joey McLaughlin. Gorman Thomas. Billy Gardner. Paul Marabella. Larry Herndon. Frank LaCourte. Ron Cey. George Vukovich. Kent Tekulve. And the Kent Tekulve Super Veteran. This is a cool subset that's in this set. Show you the back. Oscar Gamble. Hall of Famer Carlton Fisk. Pair of Hall of Famers here, Eddie Murray and Jim Palmer, on the batting and pitching leaders. Randy Martz. Mike Heath. Steve Mura. Al McRae. Jerry Royster. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. Doug Corbett. Bruce Bochy. Great signer. Randy Jones. Jim Rice. Another great signer. Hall of Famer. Bill Gullickson. Dave Bergman. Jack O'Connor. Paul Householder. Hall of Famer Raleigh Fingers. And the Super Vet card. Daryl Johnson. Tim Flannery. Terry Poole. Fernando Valenzuela. This is a card I might have to replace. Jerry Turner. It almost looks like it's perforated on this side. Dale Murray, Bob Dernier, Don Robinson, John Mayberry, Richard Dotson, Dave McKay, Larry Sorensen, Willie McGee, rookie, really nice player, Bob Horner, 4 home runs in 1 game. Here's a Hall of Famer, Fergie Jenkins, and then Leon Durham, the batting and pitching leaders. I don't think I showed the backs of these, but they're team checklists. Onyx Concepcion, Mike Witt, Jim Maller, Mookie Wilson, Chuck Rainey, Tim Blackwell, Al Holland, Benny Ayala, Hall of Famer Johnny Bench, and the Super Vet, Bob McClure, Rick Monday, Bill Stein, Hall of Famer Jack Morris, Bob Lillis, Sal Butera, Eric Schau, rookie, Lee Lacy, Hall of Famer Steve Carlton, and the Super Vet, Tom Paciorek, Alan Ripley, Julio Gonzalez, Amos Otis, Rick Mailer, Hoskin Powell, Bill Cotto, Mick Kelleher, George Foster, Yankees batting and pitching leaders Jerry Mumphrey and Dave Righetti, Bruce Hurst, and the first Hall of Fame rookie card, Ryne Sandberg, Milt May, Ken Singleton, Tom Hume, Joe Rudi, Jim Gantner, Leon Roberts, Jerry Royce, Larry Milbourne, Haas, John Costino, Dave Edwards, Hall of Famer Alan Trammell, Dick Hauser, Ross Baumgarten, Vance Law, great TTMer, Dickie Knowles, Pete Rose, now eligible for the Hall of Fame. Give me 1 second, let me clear off this stack real quick. There's the super vet, Pete Rose. Dave Beard, Darrell Porter, Bob Walk, Don Baylor, Gene Nelson, Mike Jorgensen, Glenn Hoffman, Luis Leal, Ken Griffey, Expos batting and pitching leaders, Al Oliver and Steve Rogers, Bob Shirley, Ron Renicky, Jim Slayton, Chili Davis, Dave Schmidt, Alan Nicely, Chris Welsh, Tom Brookins, Len Barker, Mickey Hatcher, Jimmy Smith, George Frazier, Mark Hill, Leon Durham, Hall of Famer Joe Torre, Preston Hanna, Mike Ramsey, checklist, Dave Stieb, Ed Ott, Todd Cruz, Jim Barr, Hubie Brooks, Dwight Evans, Willie Aikens, Woody Fryman, Rick Dempsey, Bruce Berigny, Willie Randolph, Toby Harrah, Rick Sutcliffe, the batting and pitching leaders for the Indians, Mike Caldwell, Joe Patini, Wagner, Don Sutton, Hall of Famer, and his Super Vet card, Rick Leach. Dave Roberts, Johnny Ray, Hall of Famer Bruce Sutter, and his Super Vet card, Jay Johnstone, Jerry Koosman, great signer, Johnny LeMaster, a guy I think should be in the Hall of Fame, Dan Quisenberry, Billy Martin, Steve Bedrosian, Rob Wilfong, Mike Stanton, Dave Kingman, and his Super Vet card, Mark Clear, second year Cal Ripken, Dave Palmer, Dan Driesen, John Pasella, Mark Bruhard, Juan Eichelberger, Doug Flynn, Steve Howe, batting and pitching leaders for the Giants, Hall of Famer Joe Morgan and Bill Lasky, Vern Rule, Jim Morrison, Jerry Ujder, Bo Diaz, Dave Rigetti, Hall of Famer Harold Baines, Louis Tiant, and his Super Vet card, Ricky Henderson, Terry Felton, Mike Fichlin, Ed Vandenberg, Bob Clark, Tim Lawler, Whitey Herzog, Hall of Famer, Terry Leach, Rick Miller, Dan Schatzeder, Cecil Cooper, another great signer, Joe Price, Floyd Rayford, Harry Spillman, Cesar Geronimo, Bob Stoddard, Bill Fahey, Jim Eisenreich rookie, Kiko Garcia, Marty Bystrom, and the very underrated Rod Carew, Hall of Famer. All right, let me clear off this stack real quick. Next, Miguel Delone, hold on, I think these are out of order. Figure out what I did. Yeah, these out of order. Quick fix. There we go. Sorry about that. All right. Now they're in order. So here's the Rod Carew Super Vet. Blue Jays batting and pitching leaders, Damaso Garcia and Dave Stieb. Dave Stieb had a ton of one-hitters. Mike Morgan, Junior Kennedy, Hall of Famer Dave Parker, rest in peace. Ken Obergfell, Rick Camp, Dan Meyer, Mike Moore rookie, Jack Clark, John Denny, John Stearns, Tom Bergmeyer, Jerry White, Mario Soto, Hall of Famer Tony La Russa, Tim Stoddard, Roy Howell, Mike Armstrong, the great Dusty Baker, future Hall of Famer, Joe Niekro, Damaso Garcia, John Montefusco, Mickey Rivers, Enos Cabell, Enrique Romo, Chris Bando, Joaquin Andujar, Phillies batting and pitching leaders, Bo Diaz, Hall of Famer Steve Carlton. Here's another Hall of Famer, Fergie Jenkins. And his Super Vet card. Tom Brunansky. Wayne Gross. Larry Anderson. Claudell Washington. Steve Renko. Dan Norman. Dave Stapleton, Hall of Famer Goose Gossage, and a Super Vet card, Joe Nolan, Dwayne Walker, Dwight Bernard, Steve Sachs. He's a pretty good signer from what I know. George Bamberger, Dave Smith, Bake McBride, Checklist, Bill Buckner, Alan Wiggins, Luis Aguayo, Larry McWilliams, Rick Cerrone, he's another great signer, Gene Garber, and the Gene Garber Super Vet, Jesse Barfield, nice player, Manny Castillo, Jeff Jones, Steve Kemp, Tigers batting and pitching leaders Larry Herndon and Dan Petrie, Ron Jackson, Rennie Martin, Jamie Quirk, Joel Youngblood, Paul Boris, future Hall of Famer Terry Francona, Storm Davis rookie, Ron Oster, Hall of Famer Dennis Eckersley, great signer, Ed Romero, there's another great signer, Frank Tanana, Mark Belanger, Terry Kennedy, Ray Knight, Gene Mock, Rance Mullenix, Kevin Hickey, Greg Gross, Hall of Famer Burt Blyleven, Andre Robertson, Reggie Smith. This one has Ryan Sandberg in it, so it's sort of a quasi-rookie, I guess. And the Reggie Smith Super Vet. Jeff Lady. Lance Parrish. Rick Langford. Bobby Brown. Joe Cowley. Jerry Dibzinski. Jeff Reardon. Pirates batting and pitching leaders Bill Madlock and John Candelaria. He deserves to be in the Hall. Craig Swan. Gulliver, Dave Engel, Jerry Remy, Greg Harris, Ned Yost, Floyd Schiffer, George Wright, and Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt. Go ahead and put this stack off to the side. Here's the super vet, Mike Schmidt. Ernie Witt. Here's the card I showed earlier when I had him out of order. Miguel Delone. Dave Rucker. Larry Boa, great signer. Very nice player. Hall of Famer Tommy Lasorda. Lou Piniella. Jesus Vega. Jeff Leonard. Greg Lazinski. Glenn Brummer. Brian Kingman. Gary Gray. Ken Daly. Rick Burleson. Paul Splitorf. Gary Rajsish. John Tudor. Len Sakata. Steve Rogers. Brewers batting and pitching leaders, Hall of Famer Robin Yount and Pete Vukovich, who's otherwise known as Clu Haywood from Major League. Dave Van Gorder. Luis De Leon. Mike Marshall. Von Hayes. Garth Orge, great signer, both he and his brother. Bobby Castillo. Craig Reynolds. Randy Neiman. Buddy Bell. Mike Krukow. Glenn Wilson. Dave LaRoche. And his Super Vet card. Steve Henderson. Renee Latchman. I got his autograph on a baseball. I think it was 1989 when he was a coach for the Angels. He's a really nice guy. Tito Landrum. Bob Ochinko. Terry Harper. Larry Gura. Doug DeCinces. Atlee Hammaker. Bob Baylor. Roger Lefrancois, Jim Clancy, Joe Pittman, Sammy Stewart, Alan Bannister. Checklist. Hall of Famer Robin Yount. The Reds batting and pitching leaders, Cesar Cedeno and Mario Soto. Mike Scioscia. Steve Comer. Randy Johnson. Jim Bibby. Gary Woods. Len Matusek. Jerry Garvin. Dave Collins. The great Nolan Ryan. Also a great signer. I think he's 75 per. And the super vet Nolan Ryan. Bill Allman. John Stuper. Brett Butler. I think he might sign. Not 100% sure, but I think he does. Davey Lopes. Hall of Famer Dick Williams. Bud Anderson. Richie Zisk. Jesse Orosco. Pitched like 70 years. Hall of Famer Gary Carter. Mike Richard. Terry Crowley. Kevin Saucier. Wayne Krenchicki. Maybe. Pete Vukovich. Ken Landro. Lee May. And the super vet. Guy Soulars. Ron Davis. Red Sox batting and pitching leaders, Jim Rice and Bob Stanley. Jim Rice, a Hall of Famer. Bob Nepper. Ozzie Virgil. Dave Dravecki, rookie. Mike Easler. Now we've got the All-Stars, Hall of Famer Rod Carew. Bobby Grich. Hall of Famer George Brett. Hall of Famer Robin Yount. Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson. Quite a few Hall of Famers on these All-Star teams. Hall of Famer Rickey Henderson. Fred Lynn. Hall of Famer Carlton Fisk. Pete Vukovich. Larry Gura. Dan Quisenberry. Pete Rose, Manny Trio, Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt, Dave Concepcion. All right, let me clear off this stack real quick. Make sure the next one's in the right order, but I think it is. Should be Hall of Famer Dale Murphy. Do it for Dale. Hall of Famer Andre Dawson. Hall of Famer Tim Raines. Hall of Famer Gary Carter. Steve Rogers. Hall of Famer Steve Carlton. And Hall of Famer Bruce Sutter. Those are the All-Star cards. Rudy May. Marvis Foley. Hall of Famer Phil Niekro. And his super vet. Rangers batting and pitching leaders, Buddy Bell, Charlie Huff, fantastic TTM signer. Matt Keogh, Julio Cruz. Let me move these a little closer. Bob Forsch, Joe Ferguson, Tom Houseman, Greg Pryor, Steve Crawford, Al Oliver, and his super vet card, George Capozella, Tom Lawless, Jerry Augustine, Pedro Guerrero, Hall of Famer Earl Weaver, and some of his umpire arguments are legendary. Roy Lee Jackson, Champ Summers, Eddie Whitson, Kirk Gibson, Gary Gaetti, rookie, one of the better power-hitting third baseman of his day, Porfirio Altamirano, Dale Berra, Dennis Lamps, a great signer, Tony Armas, Bill Campbell, Rick Sweet, Dave LaPointe, Rafael Ramirez, another great signer, Ron Guidry, Astros batting and pitching leaders, Ray Knight and Joe Niekro, Brian Downing, Don Hood, Wally Backman, Mike Flanagan, Reed Nichols, Brent Smith. I think he's a good signer. Darrell Evans. Eddie Milner. Hall of Famer Ted Simmons. And a super vet. Lloyd Mosby. Lamar Johnson. Bob Welsh. Sixto Lescano. Lee Alaya. Milt Wilcox. Ron Washington, rookie. Ed Farmer. Roy Smalley. Steve Trout. Steve Nicosia. Hall of Famer Gaylord Perry. And a super vet. Lonnie Smith. Tom Underwood. Rufino Linares. Dave Goltz. Ron Gardenhire. Greg Minton. Royals batting and pitching leaders, Willie Wilson and Vida Blue. Gary Allenson. John Lowenstein. Ray Burris. Cesar Cedeno. Rob Piciolo. Tom Niedenfuer. There's another great signer, Phil Garner. Sorry. Another great signer, the great Charlie Huff. I miss knuckleball pitchers. Toby Harrah, another great signer. Scott Thompson, one of the greatest hitters of all time. Hall of Famer Tony Gwynn's rookie card. Rest in peace. Next we have Lynn Jones. Dick Ruthven. Omar Moreno. Clyde King. Jerry Hairston. Alfredo Griffin. Tommy Herr. Hall of Famer Jim Palmer. And the Super Vet card. Paul Cerna. Steve McCaddy. Bob Brenly. Warren Cromartie. Tom Verzer. Rick Sutcliffe. And the third Hall of Fame rookie card from the set, the great Wade Boggs. Also a great TTM signer. I think he's $20 for his rookie card, but that might have gone up since I sent him one. Next we have Jeff Little and Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson. Go ahead and clear off this stack. Super vet Reggie Jackson. Atlanta Braves batting and pitching leaders. Dale Murphy, Hall of Famer Phil Niekro. Moose Haas. Don Werner. Gary Templeton. Jim Gott. Tony Scott. Tom Filler. Should be Hall of Famer Lou Whitaker. Trammell can't be in and Whitaker not be. Makes no sense. Tug McGraw. And the Super Vet. Doyle Alexander. Fred Stanley. Rudy Law. Gene Tennis. Bill Verdon. Gary Ward. Bill Lasky. Terry Bulling. Fred Lynn. Bruce Benedict. Paul Zachary. Carney Lansford. I used to emulate his batting stance when I was younger. Tom Brennan. Frank White. Checklist. Larry Bittner. Jamie Easterly. Tim Loudner. Hall of Famer Eddie Murray, one of the greatest switch hitters of all time. Right up there with Mickey Mantle. Oakland A's batting and pitching leaders, Hall of Famer Ricky Henderson and Rick Langford. Dave Stewart, I believe this is his second year. Luis Salazar. John Butcher. Manny Trio, great signer. Johnny Walkenfuss. Rod Scurry. Danny Heap. Roger Erickson. Hall of Famer Ozzie Smith. I think this is his first Cardinals card. Yeah. Unless he was in one of the traded sets in 82 maybe. I'm not sure. Britt Burns. Jody Davis. Alan Folks. Larry Wissington. Floyd Bannister. Dave Garcia. Jeff Zahn. Giles, Charlie Puleo, the great Carl Yastrzemski, and the Super Vet card, Tim Wallach, El Presidente, Denny Martinez, Mike Vale, Steve Yeager, Willie Upshaw, Rick Honeycutt, Dickie Thon, Pete Redfern, Ron LaFleur, Cardinals batting and pitching leaders, Lonnie Smith and Joaquin Andujar, Dave Razima, Juan Bonilla, Sid Monge, or Monge, not sure how you say that. I always say Monge, but it's probably Monge or something. Bucky Effin Dent, Manny Sarmiento, Joe Simpson, Willie Hernandez, Jack Perconti, Vida Blue, Mickey Klutz, Bob Watson, Andy Hassler, Glenn Adams, Neil Allen, very underrated in the hobby, Hall of Famer Frank Robinson. This card should be worth a lot more than they actually are, in my opinion. Luis Aponte, David Green, Rich Dower, Hall of Famer Tom Seaver, Tom Terrific, and the Super Vet card. Marshall Edwards, Terry Forster, Dave Hostetler, Jose Cruz, Frank Viola, rookie card, great TTM signer, Ivan DeJesus, Pat Underwood, Alvis Woods, Tony Pena, White Sox batting and pitching leaders, Greg Lazinski and Lamar Hoyt, Shane Raleigh, Broderick Perkins, Eric Rasmussen, Hall of Famer Tim Raines, Randy Johnson, Mike Proley, Dwayne Murphy, Don Ossie, and Hall of Famer, the great George Brett. Let me move this one off to the side. Ed Lynch, Rich Gedman, Hall of Famer Joe Morgan, and the Super Vet card. Got Gary, Gary Renicky, Hall of Famer Bobby Cox, Charlie Lee Brandt, Don Money, Danny Darwin, another great TTM signer, and another great TTM signer, Steve Garvey, Bert Roberge, Steve Swisher, Mike Ivy, Ed Glynn, Gary Maddox. Fix the camera a little bit. Bill Naharodny, Butch Weiniger, Lamar Hoyt, Keith Moreland, Mike Norris, Mets batting and pitching leaders, Mookie Wilson, Craig Swan, Dave Edler, Luis Sanchez, Glenn Hubbard, Ken Forsch, Jerry Martin, Doug Baer, Julio Valdez, Charlie Lee, Hall of Famer Paul Molitor, another great TTM signer, Tippy Martinez, Alex Trevino, Vincente Romo, Max Venable, Greg Nettles, really good player. Hall of Very Good, I guess. Greg Nettles, Super Vet. Pat Corrales, Dan Petrie, Art Howe, Andre Thornton, another great TTM signer, Billy Sample, checklist, Bump Wills, Joe Lefevre, Bill Madlock, Jim Essien, Bobby Mitchell, Jeff Burrows, Tommy Boggs, George Hendrick, Angels batting and pitching leaders, Hall of Famer Rod Carew and Mike Witt, Butch Hobson, Ellis Valentine, Bob Ojeda, Al Bumbry, Dave Frost, Gates, Frank Pastore, Charlie Moore, Mike Hargrove, Bill Russell, Joe Sambito, Tom O'Malley, Bob Molinaro, Jim Sundberg, great defensive catcher. I believe he's a good TTM signer, too. Hall of Famer Sparky Anderson, Dick Davis, Larry Christensen, Mike Squires, Jerry Mumphrey, Lenny Fado, Hall of Famer Jim Cott, and the Super Vet, Kurt Bavacqua, Jim Beattie, Biff Pocoroba, Dave Revering, Juan Beniquez, Mike Scott, Hall of Famer Andre Dawson, Dodgers batting and pitching leaders Pedro Guerrero and Fernando Valenzuela, Bob Stanley, Dan Ford, Rafael Landestoy, Lee Mazzilli, Randy Lurch, UL Washington, Jim Wolford, Ron Hassey, Kent Herbeck, Dave Tobick, Denny Walling, Sparky Lyle, and the Super Vet card. Rupert Jones, Chuck Tanner, Barry Foote, Tony Bernazard, Lee Smith, Hall of Famer, second year card, Keith Hernandez. Move this one off to the side. All right, next we have the league leaders cards. 82 batting leaders, Willie Wilson and Al Oliver. Show you the backs of these. Home run leaders. AL, we had Reggie Jackson and Gorman Thomas. NL, we had Dave Kingman. '82 RBI leaders. AL, Hal McRae. NL, we had Dale Murphy and Al Oliver. '82 stolen base leaders, Ricky Henderson and Tim Raines. '82 victory leaders, Lamar Hoyt, Steve Carlton. '82 strikeout leaders, Floyd Bannister and Steve Carlton. 82 ERA leaders, Rick Sutcliffe and Steve Rogers. And the 82 leading firemen, Dan Quisenberry and Bruce Sutter. Jimmy Sexton. Willie Wilson. Mariners batting and pitching leaders, Bruce Boakty and Jim Beattie. Bruce Kyson. Ron Hodges. Wayne Nordhagen. Hall of Famer Tony Perez. And his Super Vet card. Scott Sanderson. Jim Dwyer. Rich Gale. Dave Concepcion. John Martin. George Orta. Randy Moffett. Johnny Grubb. Dan Spillner. Harvey Keene, manager of Harvey's Wallbangers. Chet Lemon. Ron Reed. Jerry Morales. Jason Thompson. Al Williams. Dave Henderson. Buck Martinez. Steve Braun. Tommy John. And the Super Vet card. Mitchell Page. Tim Foley. Rick Ownby. Rusty Staub. And the Super Vet. Got the Padres batting and pitching leaders, Terry Kennedy and Tim Lawler. Mike Torres. Brad Mills. Scott McGregor. John Wathen. Fred Brining. Daryl Thomas. John Matlack. Ben Ogilvie. Brad Havens. Luis Pujols. Elias Sosa. Bill Robinson. John Candelaria. Russ Nixon. Another great TTM signer, Rick Manning. Aurelio Rodriguez. Doug Bird. Should be Hall of Famer Dale Murphy. Gary Lucas. Cliff Johnson. Al Cowens. Pete Falcone. Another great TTM signer, and this would be a cool card to get autographed. Bob Boone. That's a cool image. Barry Bonnell. Dwayne Kuiper. Chris Spire. And checklist. Hall of Famer Dave Winfield. Twins batting and pitching leaders, Kent Hrbek, Bobby Castillo. Jim Kern. Larry Heisel. Alan Ashby. Bert Hooton. Larry Parrish. John Curtis. Rich Hebner. Rick Waits. Just a few more to go. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Gary Matthews. Sarge. Rick Rhoden. Bobby Mercer. Super Vet. Jeff Newman. Dennis Leonard. Golf Hauk. Dick Tidrow. Dane Orge. Brian Clark. Bobby Grich. Gary Lavelle. And the last card of the set, Chris Chambliss. So there you have it. That's the 1983 Topps baseball set. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing that. Till next time, thanks for watching the video, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.